Well, welcome, Pete Hantman. It's great to have you here with me today, and I'm looking forward to interviewing you, Pete.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Susie. Nice to see you again.
Yeah, it's been a few months since we last met, and so it's great to have a bit of a catch up. And last time we met, you were the COO of Tungsten Automation. You're now the CEO. So congratulations on your new role. I think that was announced in July. So exciting to have you at the helm of the organization. Maybe you can kick off by telling me a little bit about what your vision is for Tungsten Automation.
Sure, Susie. We are really fortunate to have such wonderful customers. They really drive our future. I joined the company in part inspired by the wealth of customers that we had attracted over really a 40-year history, spanning multiple geographies, multiple customer segments, from the largest enterprises in the world down to mid-sized enterprises, across a wide variety of industries, both public and private sector, and geographic coverage is phenomenal as well. And my vision for the company really is to lean into those customer relationships. We have such a wide range of compelling solutions for that group of customers that we could more than double the size of our business and not attract a single new customer. So of course we're focused on acquiring new customers, but first and foremost, our business will grow very handsomely simply by focusing on delivering compelling, increasing value to our existing customers. To do that, of course, you need alignment between people, process, and systems. And so to deliver compelling solutions, we need to have people who are the best in the world, who are motivated to focus on listening to their customers and really deeply understanding the way each customer defines success. And then really leaning into ensuring our product roadmap is aligned to that definition of customer success, our delivery, our partner ecosystem, our critical components as well. And so we're investing. We're fortunate to be highly profitable for a company our size, and we're reinvesting that profit in people, process, and systems to drive compelling solutions that our customers are asking for.
Great. I mean, a lot there, so thanks for that. That's a nice big vision, and so much for us to unpack. So I mean, let's start a little bit by talking about another recent piece of news. And you mentioned in what you just mentioned there in the vision that partnerships are a big thing for you as well. The Sovos partnership was announced June, July time as well, which makes complete sense for a leader in automation to be partnering with a leader in compliance and tax. Can you tell us a little bit more about that partnership and kind of the history of it and why it came about?
Sure, absolutely. Well, we have lots of partnerships in our ecosystem, partners who help distribute our product. We often refer to them as resellers, and this is across our full product portfolio. And we also have technology partnerships, and we've had these for a very long time. Today, innovation cycles that used to take place every 3 to 4 years happen every 3 to 4 months. And given the breadth and depth of the clients we serve, it's really impossible to be all things to all people, and it's a fool's folly to do that. So through technology partnerships, we're able to leverage the power of our platform, its global scale, its reliability, its data center dispersion to allow sovereign data rights, our deep understanding of customer requirements, our ERP integration capabilities. All of those can be leveraged by bringing in third-party technology providers so that we can really provide comprehensive solutions. And we have been doing business with Sovos embedded into our solution for a long time. We had other partners also providing certain tax determination, tax verification services. And we felt like Sovos was the best, and that, like many companies, we ought to consolidate the number of suppliers and get more strategic with them. We're no different than the customers we serve in that regard. And Sovos was clearly the best to us. We leaned in, and I reached out to leverage the relationships that we had to their CEO, who I think you know, and he and I had a shared vision for how we would bring combined value to the market, and our culture and go-to-market motions aligned, and so we leaned into really partnering to provide our clients a one-stop shop, a seamless experience, whether they're an existing Sovos customer leaning into invoice automation or an existing invoice automation customer leaning into tax services. Their experience will be seamless, whether their starting point was as a Sovos customer or a Tungsten customer or neither.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so seamless experience from the customer perspective, which obviously is crucial for
customer,
now.
Yeah, so just to clarify, you know, Tungsten Automation really in the e-invoicing and document-based invoicing markets, we consider the stakeholders to be both buyer and supplier. And so I use the phrase customer to really describe the entire ecosystem there.
Great, yeah. So coming back to that kind of seamless relationship that or seamless experience that the customer would have from this partnership. So a couple of questions on that, because sometimes there's a bit of a concern when there are multiple partners or providers offering a joined up solution. The customer might want to know, you know, who's responsible for something if something goes wrong. So how do you give assurance to your customers that if something does go wrong, and that's when the contract comes out, right? When something goes wrong, how do you give an assurance to your customers that when something hits a bump in the road, that you hold full accountability, or someone will be rushing in to make sure that they are fully supported? How do you give your customers that assurance?
Sure. Well, first, again, we've been working with Sovos for 10 years, and this has not been a challenge for customers. Second, there's an intangible level of comfort that comes from top-to-top relationships. So the fact that Sovos' leadership and Tungsten Automation leadership have been working together for 10 years and have a common vision for the future, and both have reputations for exceptional customer service and satisfaction. Both have world-class retention of existing customers, renewal rates, and so on. That's really an important foundation. But then contractually, from a customer's point of view, whoever they contract with is a single back to Pat for a job well done, or a single point of contact to escalate any concern. Customers don't have to swivel chair from a support perspective and go from one to the other. From a back office perspective, we've created a consolidated single deployment capability and a consolidated single support methodology. So today's technology exists that we can share across two support organizations all of the data necessary to provide a seamless support experience, and we're very confident our customers will find that. They're only contracting with one of the two entities typically, and then we're cross-contracting behind the scenes, which in today's marketplace is exceedingly common. I think it's probably the case that most enterprise customers aren't even aware of how many solution components of their chosen contracted provider are actually delivered by third parties. Part of what you're buying into is the accountability and responsibility for an overall solution delivery. As a large enterprise, you're limiting the number of point solution providers with whom you need to develop support relationships, SLAs, etc. By going with Tungsten Automation, you have someone with global scale, proven reliability, proven scalability, and I think that's part of our differentiation in the marketplace, particularly as we look at the market for AP and AR automation. We're increasingly seeing in parallel with efforts of large companies to modernize their ERP infrastructure, and in parallel with their efforts to take cost out leveraging AI, is an effort to create regional or super regional shared service centers that manage, among other things, AP workflows. And they want a consistent approach to AP globally, a consistent manner of retrieving very valuable information about supplier performance, commodity pricing, etc. And they want to do that with a limited number of partners. Now, it's very difficult for one partner to manage invoices anywhere in the world of any nature, electronic or document-based. But we come closer than anyone else at being able to do that independently. And then by partnering with Sovos, we dramatically improve each other's coverage globally in that regard, positioning us as together, I think, the largest global provider in terms of reach geographically and capability. And Susie, we're just getting started. I mentioned earlier that we're profitable and highly profitable and growing, and that we're reinvesting that profit into product. Well, there's no area receiving more investment than our AP business, and we have a vision for that we think will be very compelling.
Yeah, and I want to come on to the bit more of the detail around the what you're investing in product-wise in just a moment. And I think it's largely accepted now in the world of electronic invoicing for companies that process in more than one country or a cluster of countries, that they will be dealing with a bit of an ecosystem.
Yes.
And hopefully a joined up seamless ecosystem, because as you say, there's not one company out there that can manage all countries from an automation and a compliance perspective for a single client. I mean, that job is just too mammoth.
We're close. I agree, but we're getting closer.
Yeah, and I think well now you've got this partnership for the compliance and the automation bit. They dovetail in so nicely together, and so I think what you're saying for an enterprise organizations, you and your partnership with Sovos seem to be like a really solid choice, and you're up there and you're highly competitive, it sounds like, because of the kind of the connection between the automation and the compliance piece. Yeah,
right.
So
global reach.
So slight kind of little elephant in the room here. It won't miss some people's attention that Sovos and Tungsten Automation, you obviously have a couple of private equity owners, as does Sovos, but you share one private equity owner, and I appreciate one is minor for one and a little bit bigger for the other, but what's stopping a possible merger from happening at some point in the future, do you think?
It's an interesting question, one we haven't really given much thought to. I think your premise is that we're both private equity owned and we share an owner, a minority owner in both cases. And the question you're proposing is, does that somehow influence the likelihood that we merge at some point? And I would say probably not. Let me speak to Tungsten Automation because I really can't speak to Sovos, but Tungsten Automation has a 40-year history. During that history, we've grown reputations in the marketplace, products and positioning in the marketplace that haven't been radically impacted by the changes in ownership, particularly in the last 5 years. And it is increasingly the case that larger and larger companies are owned privately versus in the public markets. And just as in the public markets, shareholders may come and go, a mutual fund may invest in a company and then at some point make a decision to invest elsewhere, and another investor may come in, or even a retail investor. Same is true in private equity, where your investors increasingly are clubbed up. There are multiple private equity investors in companies as large as ours, and they may come and go, and that change in ownership typically does not represent a fundamental change in the company's strategy or its operational footprint. So we've built a management team that will transcend multiple private equity owners, and when our private equity group believes that it's time for them to pass the baton to a different owner, they'll do so. But I think of that more similarly than ever to the way that a public company CEO doesn't concern themselves with the relationship between the strategy of the company and who its owners are. Certainly, we take our stakeholder universe of customers, employees, and owners equally sort of to heart as we look at strategy and decision making. But I would answer the question very clearly and say, I don't think the fact that a portion of Sovos and a portion of Tungsten Automation are owned by the same PE firm as a fact that would influence the likelihood we merge or not merge. And again, speaking just on behalf of Tungsten Automation, our focus, as I mentioned in the introduction, is very clear. We're focused on our customers and delivering compelling value to them, accelerating our growth by reinvesting in people, process, and systems that deliver compelling products. And we are an AI first, cloud first, customer first growth company. That's our focus, and I think any change in ownership that may occur over time won't impact our customers or our partnerships. So that's I think, again, perhaps newer than it may have been. A change in the private equity market over the last 5 or 10 years is that you see, larger and larger companies staying private. We're large enough to be a public company. We choose not to.
Yeah, great. And you talked about your profitability, and I think that this is such it's always been important, obviously, and it's always been a question on an RFP. Like, tell me about the financials of your organization. But I think now, especially going into e-invoicing mandates, and we see that long roadmap ahead, the financial security of a service provider was always important, but I think it's become more important because your customers and your prospects, they want to make sure that their solution is future proof. So So yeah, it sounds like whatever the blend ends up being, there's certainly good kind of financial stability. And as you said, your focus is on the customer experience and customer value. So let's dive into a little bit more on the automation. So congratulations. I get pop-ups every now and then about how tungsten automation is winning praise in the market. Like, you've been recognized as one of the top 25 business process software companies of 2025. You're a leader in the 2025 Gartner Magic Quadrant for IDP solutions. So you're certainly getting a lot of that kind of praise and recognition. And you've just recently, I believe, launched TAP, is it TAP? Your AI, or kind of more enhanced AI offering. Maybe you could tell us a little bit more about that before we jump into the tungsten network piece. So tell us a bit more about
Sure.
AI in the overall offering. Yeah.
Right. Well, thank you for acknowledging the momentum and recognition, and that's terrific. But the most important stakeholder, again, is how our customers feel about our ability to drive value, and that's really fueling accelerated growth that we're super excited about, because it proves the value. But you're right. There are a lot of small startup companies that are AI first, that have compelling sort of laboratory experiments that are very attractive to large and small companies. And increasingly, I'm concerned that those small companies won't be able to provide the scale, reliability, global reach. And so we're seeing large companies, particularly financial institutions, look at those small companies, be excited by them, but then never move forward with them because of the financial risks they represent. So we're inspired by some of what those small companies do, and we create opportunities as a platform for some of those companies that do have compelling solutions to gain access to some of the larger companies with whom we work in a very secure way for our large customers. So that is one way that we're bringing innovative technology to market. We also have our own investments in research and development that are yielding new products at an increasing rate. We have adopted agentic development ourselves, and we have sprints that would have taken 8 to 10 weeks to introduce a new feature, now moving into testing after 1 week. So really 8 to 1 acceleration in development cycle time, and that's going to increase as we do more and more model training on the large installed base of code that we have. And we have hired some of the best in the world, we believe, at that, and really continue to lean in. Most companies that are experiencing productivity gains in research and development are reducing their total percent of revenue allocated to R&D because they can, because they say, well, gee, we can now do more with less, so we will invest less into research and development. As I look at next year, we're establishing budgets now, like most companies, and we're maintaining, if not increasing, the percent of revenue invested in R&D, despite the fact that we're achieving 20-30% productivity gains in R&D, only because I really believe that to stay ahead in this market and continue to receive the industry recognition that we have, you need to commit to those sort of innovative roadmaps that are very responsive to the customer segments that you serve. So that's kind of a bit of a high-level view. From an AI perspective, we are gaining recognition for very responsible, reliable use of AI. So that does mean that we're discerning very carefully what are the right use cases for AI? AI consumes a lot of compute power, has environmental implications and ethical implications, and AI is representative of the single largest technology shift, I think, in my lifetime. So we're very pro AI, but we do so very responsibly. In other words, there are lots of use cases that for 40 years we've been solving with machine learning and rule-based AI, and bringing generative AI to that solution makes no sense if we have something that's already proven at scale and is extremely cost efficient and environmentally efficient. That's not a place for AI to make a difference. Where AI can make a difference is increasingly targeting problems that prior to today were believed could only be solved with labor intense, staring and comparing. And our ability to extract knowledge from not only documents in flight, but also structured and unstructured data that may reside at the corporation or outside the corporation in a secure way, so that humans can then bring together insights and knowledge that can help them reflect on the particular document that's being processed. That's the vision that won us awards in IDP, Intelligent Document Processing. And that same approach is now available within our accounts payable automation suite of products. And so over the next 3 to 6 months, we have a series of real innovative announcements in our AP environment, one of which will be that we're completely leveraging the leadership we have in AI and document processing into the document-based invoice processing business we have, which is enormous. We have, in total with e-invoicing, probably 500 million invoices of $4 trillion of dollar value per year, making us clearly one of the largest in that space. So we can afford to lean into investment when we're blessed with so much volume, with such global dispersion.
Yeah, well, that's great. And then zeroing in then on the network piece. So you've obviously got, and you said yourself at the beginning of this interview that you would see huge growth just by serving your existing clients and making sure as much as possible that they get the value from the full portfolio of the Tungsten automation offering. So a question on, and you mentioned some numbers there about invoice volumes, and so if we zero in on the network piece, bringing your clients from over to the actual network, so they're utilizing the network. I mean, you've obviously got a firm strategy around that, so to move them on to electronic invoicing, and obviously making sure that they comply with the mandates, but helping them fulfill business efficiency goals as well, if they're in, for example, the US or Canada, where we don't see mandates coming anytime soon. What's the strategy to bring your clients onto the Tungsten network piece, the e-invoicing piece?
Yes, excellent question. The strategy is really not to bring them onto the network. The strategy is to meet the needs of our accounts payable automation customers as they navigate this very complex global environment for tax and mandates and invoicing. And so sometimes that means, for certain customers, bringing them into what was traditionally referred to as Tungsten Network, but not always. Other times we can better meet the needs of that particular customer by simply allowing them interoperability with any of the major standards like PEPL at a very low cost way. So many of our buyers have very specific requirements for their suppliers, and many of their suppliers want to know upon input validation that all the complexity of the buyer's invoicing requirements are met, along with the mandated requirements. And so in that environment, Tungsten Network does very well. It's very unique in its ability to both manage the interoperability in mandated countries and the clearance, and that's only enhanced with Sovos, while at the same time maintaining what has been traditionally associated with the benefits of a network, those being principally from the buyer side, that only authorized suppliers can actually hit them with an invoice, and that invoice can be input validated and contain many custom fields, hundreds sometimes of custom fields on a purchase order flipped to an invoice, far beyond what is mandated, in the interoperability networks, and at the same time know they're complying, with those interoperability networks. So yes, it's true that Tungsten Network has been a true network, and that's been wonderful. And yes, it's also true that we have a solution previously referred to as E-Invoice Connect, which is your standard interoperable approach. And our announcements in the next 3 to 6 months will include a sort of a new view of that, where there'll be less distinction one versus the other. They will both have components necessary to provide the needs of the buyer-supplier relationship at the time in the market that exists. Again, looking globally. That's one of the big innovations we're bringing, is retaining the ability to provide some of the value of what was previously referred to as a closed network, with all of the benefits of an open network, depending on the needs of that buyer and supplier. And our value proposition to the largest companies in the world who operate across all these markets is really that we can meet the needs for invoicing in the markets they serve. And just one last thought on that, incidentally, many of those large companies that may initially come to us because of our accounts payable automation capabilities are themselves suppliers to other companies. And so we're increasingly seeing the market interested in the relationship between accounts payable and accounts receivable automation as these markets evolve in their clearance requirements and tax withholding requirements. The ability to automate the reconciliation on the receivable side is really partnered very closely with the payable automation.
Yeah, great. And I'm glad that you you mentioned the whole interoperability bit there and open networks. I think some observers or competitors in the market might see the tungsten automation, the e-invoicing part of the tungsten automation offering, as historically quite closed. It sounds like well, the only route forward really is interoperability. So, and that sounds like it's being very heavily embraced by you and the team. I mean, a question on that. So I know that historically, and really when I talk about historically, I mean it's conversations that I'm having now, but also I've had over a decade ago about the tungsten network component. And I hear what you're saying about other solutions have been acquired on the way to kind of bolster up your e-invoicing offering as well. But one of the benefits that tungsten automation brings to the e-invoicing table is the data enrichment. So you talked about shared services, and shared services will always look to enhance their straight-through processing metrics. And in order for them to do that, they'll work with a solution like a tungsten automation to make sure that the supplier is correct, the purchase order is there, the purchase order is in the right format, it's a correct purchase order. And if not, then everything, the invoice will fail and be rejected. So a question to you, obviously now we're moving into mandates and the rejection process is very different. And I'm not going to ask you about the rejection, how you manage rejected invoices, because it will change country to country and it's massively complex. But we are being taken into a whole new age of rejected invoices. But I will ask you a question about how your e-invoicing network does do the enrichment part, now that often suppliers who are sending invoices to tungsten buyers might not be using the tungsten e-invoicing network to send those invoices. So how are you able to enrich if a supplier isn't sending via tungsten?
Let me segment the market a little bit. So our tungsten network solution, which again will not be characterized sort of as closed in the future the way that it may have been in the past, is gaining market share with some of the largest companies in the world who operate in those mandated countries, but who insist on supplier compliance with their standards. And they're attracted to our white glove supplier onboarding capabilities. And those suppliers often choose to participate in Tungsten Network, even though in that market they may have the legal right to submit their invoice directly to a clearance. They often will give us permission to create the legal and tax artifacts, they meaning the suppliers, along with their effort to enrich data before they submit to the government portal. So there's lots of ways that we are working with suppliers to meet the demands of buyers and also achieve efficiency in those mandated countries. And it's interesting because that also plays into the accounts receivable effort that those suppliers will have, and so we're thrilled to provide that service so that we can then enhance the value we're bringing to that supplier with the receivables reconciliation automation. We're seeing, when we look at the landscape of e-invoicing, we're seeing that as countries with tax jurisdictions travel the maturity cycle, you can kind of see different markets evolve, and in many respects Latin America may be the most evolved, and what we're seeing there is that what was a trend to just go direct through a clearance portal offered by a tax authority, which was attractive at first as a perhaps inexpensive and rapid way to achieve compliance, is now no longer meeting the needs very well of buyers or suppliers who are now saying, gee, this simply going through the mandate process is not meeting our business needs for automation, and we're actually struggling to provide the information necessary to avoid fines or to avoid overpaying. And so there's almost this coming back to the notion that we need to have data enrichment, data validation, and automation provided by a third party. And so we expect to do that very well in Latin America, and particularly with Sovos, and then take that learning to our global companies, so that as you see, Belgium and Poland and France adopt e-invoice mandates, we can hopefully accelerate the buyer-supplier experience, because we've seen the movie before play out in Latin America. We know how that maturity curve looks.
Mm-hmm. So it sounds like, in your experience, suppliers are still being influenced by their customers regarding what solution they might end up using. And it also sounds like, even if they weren't influenced, there's huge value for a supplier to use the solution. And you mentioned it was mainly because of the receivables reconciliations feature that you offer.
Yeah, I think that's one point. I don't know that that's the main point. And I will clarify, Susie, while we're doing very well with the largest companies in the world, we are not doing as well with the challenge of articulating the value prop in the mid-market space. So there we do see more suppliers directly submitting, and we do see buyers having a little less influence on their suppliers. Like many markets, there are different segments behaving somewhat differently. But the segments that we serve at the largest end of the market are really not seeing any degradation in buyer ability to influence suppliers, but also seeing that the suppliers themselves, when serving those customers, are benefiting from the tungsten network value add, even in mandated countries. And we just have a stronger intimacy with both, and therefore can better communicate the value historically.
Right.
Going forward, our investments in product, ease of use, AI first, our interoperability, our relationship with Sovos, our other distribution partners, we expect that we will be able to articulate that value prop that the largest companies in the world have really grown attracted to the mid-market, and accelerate our growth in that market as well. But that's an area of focus over the next 3 to 6 months, and some of the announcements I mentioned will be really creating that.
Yeah. So do you think for any buyer company, so the AP teams, but I guess focusing on the enterprise companies, do you think they get more value from the e-invoicing part of the tungsten automation solution if their suppliers are also connected?
Well, I think the answer varies by market, in fact, and by the particular country mandate. But in general, the answer is yes, but not always. And we have ways of, again, working with suppliers, even who may directly submit to a portal, by getting the tax artifacts and other things prior to submission to ensure the supplier's submission is going to meet the buyer requirements. So I think yes, but that's not the only way we can bring value to supplier and buyer. Yeah,
great. I've got so many more questions that I would love to ask you, but in the interest of time, we probably need to draw this interview to a close. So just a final question, and it is tech related. so what was Kofax, and obviously now is Tungsten Automation, acquired the Tungsten network in, I believe it was 2022. This is a question around just integration and also just modernizing. So the Tungsten network, it's been around really since 2000, and also along the Kofax journey, there have been many very, very wonderful acquisitions. Readsoft, Lexmark, I believe, 170 Systems, and then of course the Tungsten network. So how integrated are all these technologies? That's question number one. Does the customer have a seamless experience with these technologies, i.e. just a single login? And number two, the Tungsten network bit, its roots are quite old. How are you making sure it's super modern for a really kind of world-class user experience?
Right. Well, Susie, we have grown both organically and inorganically. And like many companies that have grown through acquisition, there are integration journeys that sometimes span years. And our company, as Kofax, with a 40-year history, of course, started as a perpetual software company and focused on providing solutions that tended to be narrow in focus and tended to be sold locally. And many of our acquisitions followed that pattern, and it worked very well for many years and was very successful, delivering value to the customer who wanted to buy locally and wanted to buy perpetual. Of course, we're a very different company now as Tungsten Automation, and we are accelerating the rate at which we bring customers into the integrated growth products that represent our future and their future. When I look over the entire portfolio of products and customers, sure, we have some customers who are still on legacy product and who frankly are resistant to move because they say, this works so well. I have so many areas of my business that are not working well. Why do I want to touch this? I understand it may not have the latest technology. I understand this particular function may not be AI enhanced and that with AI I could do more, but it's not my priority right now. And so we're sympathetic to the customer journey. But we're very clear. We are a cloud first, and that can mean customer cloud. It doesn't necessitate always moving to a Tungsten cloud, but that can be a customer cloud or Tungsten cloud, cloud first, AI first. And in that vein, in each of our 4 product pillars and across those pillars, we're heavily focused on integrating a one-stop shop. You mentioned single sign-on. That's table stakes. We have that today. What's more important is that seamless user experience, and not just look and feel that's seamless as customers transcend multiple acquired assets. I'm talking about far deeper integration where we're presenting algorithms from multiple acquired assets on a single pane of glass, delivering a true one-stop shop experience across the full accounts payable automation cycle. And so I know we're running short on time. I sure hope you have me back, Susie, because we have so many exciting roadmap announcements to come that really speak to precisely your question around modernizing that portfolio. So I'm proud of how we've kept pace with the reliability, scalability, and security needs of the largest companies in the world, and for many years have been delivering exceptional, reliable service such that, I have a list I can't share, but I wish I could because these are household names that are doubling down and consolidating their invoice operations with Tungsten Automation because of our reliability and scalability in the e-invoice market. And geographic reach, but they don't have the full seamless experience we expect to bring them in the future, and that is a major area of investment.
Yeah, great. Let's leave it there, Pete. Thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure chatting with you today. And like you mentioned, I know we're going to catch up again soon. So thanks for your time today.
Susie, have a great day.
Thank you.